Hare Krishna. We will start with
Hare Krishna,
Mangalacharan.
Prabhuji.
Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Soyam Rupah Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutah Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय ओके we'll start our discussion on chapter 6, or we will continue our discussion on chapter 6. Please pay very careful attention. So chapter 6. I'll share the slides very quickly. So we are discussing dhyana yoga today. This is the second half or the second part of chapter 6. Very quick summary. We covered the meaning of Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagawan realization last time. So that is very important to understand some of the things that we will discuss today, at least the initial few verses. Then we also discussed that chapter 6 is all about controlling the mind. That is a very fundamental aspect of chapter 6, controlling the mind, and it is basically an extension of Jnana Yoga to focus on the Supreme Lord as the Paramatma in one's heart. So, Jnana Yoga primarily means ceasing all activity. Nishkama Karma Yoga means um, detaching oneself from the result of activities but not giving up activities. Jnana Yoga starts with the process of jnana but goes all the way till completely ceasing all activity altogether. And of course, there will be no results out of that, no material results. So, this topic, ceasing material activity, requires extreme control of the mind. Even Nishkama Karma Yoga requires control of the mind to give up uh, the attachment to the results, but giving up activity itself, and of course, it includes that you do not desire for any results, is included within giving up activity. So, that also requires extreme control of the mind. So, this chapter is basically about controlling the mind. So, it started with the beginner stage, and at the advanced stage, ceasing all action, the stage of samadhi. We discussed the 8 stages briefly. And then controlling the mind was the most important part. A controlled mind is a friend, and an uncontrolled mind is the enemy. So, we also discussed that the mind is trainable. So, mind can be trained. It is not like something which cannot be trained. So, you can train it, and training it is a process, a gradual process. You train anything, or you train yourself, or you train your pet, or you train yourself by going in the gym in a gradual way. So, once you get trained, or once the mind gets trained, then it becomes a friend. The result of training the mind or this dhyana yoga is to see Paramatma in our heart. So, and then there was a long discussion on these 10 verses on the process of performing dhyana yoga or controlling the mind. Um, some very advanced concepts were discussed, like sitting with appropriate body posture in a very isolated location, um, and focusing on mat chitta mat paraha, on the Paramatma within the heart. Then some beginning aspects were discussed, regulating the bodily needs, regulating the mind, curbing desires, and steadying the mind. Then the state of samadhi was discussed, and finally, what was discussed is dealing with setbacks. This is a very important section where uh, three verses were discussed. 25th verse says that it has to be done gradually, step by step, shanaihi shanaihi, uh, and one should, and that shanaihi includes the fact that this is a process of training gradually. You go from one step to the other. Don't jump to the last step. Don't try to run the marathon on day one. Start by walking. If you cannot even walk, start by crawling, and then you can walk, and then you can run, and then you can do the marathon. So that is the first aspect. And the second aspect was that, um, uh, especially with dhyana or controlling the mind, we discussed this very important verse. It's also a memorization verse. Yato yato nishchalati manaschanchalam asthiram tatastato niyamya aitad atmani eva vasham nayait. That um, if the mind goes away, the moment you consciously realize that the mind has gone away, bring it back. Another thing that you will realize in this process is that you are different from the mind. The mind has gone away. Somebody realizes that the mind has gone away, right? If the mind has gone away, the mind has gone away. If there was nobody else, then there's no way to realize that this other guy called the mind has gone away and I need to bring it back. That guy who realizes that the mind has gone away is the you, is the true self. So when you realize that the mind has gone away, you just bring it back. So you start with, we discussed a very practical aspect, starting with focusing on Krishna, and focusing on Krishna Naam is the best way. And after some time, it is guaranteed that the mind will wander away. But if you realize that the mind has wandered away and you also want to wander away with it, that is not okay. You bring it back the moment you realize that the mind has wandered away. So let the mind, or bring it back on Krishna Naam. Again, it will wander away. Again, you bring it back. This was a very important concept we referred or discussed last time. This is where we stopped. So now we will continue today's discussion. So, yeah. So, attaining spiritual realization. So, these uh, six verses, 27 to 32, and I think I have some, not many, but just a couple of slides on this. So, today we are going to discuss some very important aspects. Okay, so everybody should have the book. Everybody who is doing a serious study of Bhagavad Gita should definitely today have the book in front of them. Because on the slides, I have not put every verse, every word of every verse. I have only put partial portions of the verse. Like here, you will see Brahma Bhuta Akalmasham. So, but I will go over more or less all the verses. So it is best if you have the book in front of you. I don't want to switch between Veda base and PowerPoint screen. very often. It will just create disturbance. So best is if you have the book in front of you. So 27th verse. So what is going on here? 27. Uh, so let's talk about 27 first. So 27 says, Prashanta manasam hyenam yoginam sukhamuttamam upaiti shanta rajasam brahma bhuta kalmasham. So Prashanta manasam. So what this verse basically is saying that one whose mind is fully controlled is as good as situated in Brahman. Okay. So this is again, if you remember in chapter 5, this is even before death. One can attain spiritual realization. And in this case, Bhagavad Gita is talking about attaining that spiritual realization by controlling the mind. So, this verse is talking about the final effect of controlling the mind fully. When the mind is fully controlled, then one is situated in the Brahman realization. That is what is being said here. Um, so, we have talked a great deal about how to control the mind, how to deal with setbacks when the mind goes away, and so on. The understanding now is that one has controlled the mind. What is the result? Prashanta manasam hi enam. His one whose mind is fully controlled. What happens? Yoginam sukham uttamam. He experiences such a yogi. Now, this word yogi will come so many times between now till end of the chapter. We will discuss really what is the meaning of a yogi at the very end. So just notice the fact. You don't have to keep it in mind or anything like that. Just notice the fact that yogi word is coming often. Yoginam sukham uttamam. Such a yogi attains the highest sukha, uttam sukha. Upaiti means attains. And then what another effect that happens as a result of controlling the mind? Shanta rajasam. All his rajaguna, which means the mode of passion. And most people are driven today by mode of passion. So, which means that, very strong desires to achieve something, to attain something, to get something. So, that whole thing is calmed down, shanta rajasam, that just desire to hankering for material things. I want this, I want one desire is fulfilled, the next desire is ready. That whole thing is calmed down, shanta rajasam, and akalmasham. I'm going to the last word. One attains peace, or one attains freedom from the sinful reactions. All the past baggage of karmic reactions are removed. And Upaiti is applying to all these, attains all these things. So Upaiti Brahma Bhutam. One attains the stage of Brahman realization. So that is what I have written here. Brahma Bhutam Akalmasham. One attains that stage of Brahma Bhuta. Brahma Bhuta stage. This word Brahma Bhuta will come in the 18th chapter towards the end. Just a link or a reference. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. That is actually describing the Brahman realization stage. That is what is being said here. Brahma Bhuta Upaiti. One attains the Brahma Bhuta stage. So this is the effect. This is the sort of the final conclusion of the dhyana yoga process. Okay. Now, what also happens is given in the next verse. This is the, or sorry. So now the three stages of realization are going to be described: 28, 29, and 30. 28 will talk about Brahman realization. 29 will talk about Paramatma realization. So here on the screen, you can see 28 is talking about Brahman realization. This 27 was just showing the cause and effect. The cause is controlling the mind. The effect is attaining Brahman realization. Then 28 is talking about the Brahman realization, that state, what it entails. 29 is talking about Paramatma realization, and 30 will talk about Bhagawan. And there is a sequence to it also. Starts with Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. I showed you this verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam last time. So there is a sequence of understanding of the absolute truth. There is a sort of the um, Brahman realization is a general realization of the absolute truth. More specific is Paramatma, and the highest and the most specific realization is that of Bhagavan. So there is some sequence to it here, at least you can see. Purely rationally, one can say that yes, there is a sequence, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. It doesn't show or tell which one is better than which one. One can argue that Bhagavan is or Brahman is the best, then Paramatma, then Bhagavan is the least. So the arrow or whatever, it can be in a descending or ascending order, mathematically speaking. In a later, uh, this whole sequence will come in the 15th chapter as well. And then again in the 18th chapter. And in the 15th chapter, you will get a much better, Lord Krishna will make it more clear that Bhagavan realization is the highest. And in the 18th chapter, again the sequence will come. In the same sequence, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And there it will become 100% clear that Bhagavan realization is the highest. But here, this is the first occurrence that Bhagavan, there are three levels of realizations. At least a sequence is there. Mathematically speaking, you still don't know which one is highest. It could be ascending or descending. Just I'm saying that. So, Brahman realization is being described in 28th verse. Now, those who may be joining after a long break or maybe, recently joined, don't worry much about this. A lot of discussion has happened in the past. We will be, a whole new topic will begin right after this section, after the 32nd verse. So just hang tight. So 28th verse is the Brahman realization. Yunjan evam sadatmanam yogi vigata kalmashaha sukhena brahma samsparsham atyantam sukhamashnute. So Yunjan eva sada atmanam. So here atmanam, now again, that's why you need the book. That these words I'm reading are not on the screen, it's in the book. So Yunjan evam sada atmanam. That means atmanam is referring to the mind here. That one who has yunjan, who has properly engaged the mind always in the process of yoga. Yogi vigataha kalmashaha. That yogi is freed, vigataha, from all kalmashaha, all sinful reactions or all karmic reactions are burnt up or are destroyed or deleted for such a person. And what happens? He attains the sukha of Brahma samsparsham. Sukhena Brahma samsparsham. That is the word I have put here. That he is able to actually perceive, samsparsham, perceive. Now, sparsha means to touch. You cannot touch Brahman. The Brahman is spiritual. Touching is a material act or an action. So you perceive the Brahman realization. But what do you actually perceive? The sukha. It is the sukha that you perceive, the bliss that you perceive of Brahman realization. Like we experience some bliss in our material life, whatever it may be, when the moment you realize you got a promotion, or when you get the keys to your new car or your new house, or when somebody has a new baby, or whatever may be the moments of happiness in one's life, then one experiences some happiness. So this happiness multiplied many, many, many times. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, a whole sequence is given. I don't want to get into that sequence of the levels of ananda. It starts with the ananda of being the ruler, or the not the ruler, but the owner of the whole earth. That's the lowest. Today, no person exists like that. Elon Musk may be the most richest person on earth, but he also owns a tiny, tiny fraction of the resources available on the whole earth. Right? The next 2 or 3 billionaires are more richer than Elon Musk put together. They together are more richer than Elon. So we can clearly say that even one richest person owns a very tiny fraction. But that description in the Bhagavatam begins with being the owner of the entire earth planet. What great richness that might be. And that's the lowest. And then it goes from there to explain what is the higher and higher and higher levels of happiness. And one of the final levels of happiness is this Brahman realization. Then the highest is when one is with Bhagawan, the Bhagawan realization. But that Brahman realization is just so much more. And there are some more. One can ask, how do I practically understand this? Practically, I can understand owning of the whole earth. Like you can think of Elon Musk multiplied a million times. Okay, I can understand what it is. How do I understand anything beyond that? Some more details have been given by which we can deal with it in a more detailed discussion sometime. This is not the place to discuss that. But you can get some sense of what is this highest bliss. And that is the last line, Atyantam Sukham Ashnute. That is the highest level of bliss, that bliss of Brahman. Okay. Now, don't confuse this with Ananda, Satchit Ananda, Ananda of Bhagavan. So, keep that aside. There is lack of words. So, there is bliss in the Brahman realization. There is bliss in Bhagavan realization as well. So, just keep that aspect separate. All right. So, that was Brahman realization 6.28. 6.29 is directly talking about Paramatma realization. Paramatma, as you know, is the expansion of the Supreme Lord in the material world in three levels. Kshirodakshayi Vishnu, when he enters the material world itself, and many, many universes emanate or come out of his body. Then Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, the Kshirodakshayi Vishnu expands and enters into every such universe. And that is Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. From that Vishnu's navel, Brahmaji, that lotus arises and Brahmaji is there. And then within that universe, Brahmaji creates many, many living entities, the bodies. Again, the soul is eternal. And enters, and the Garbhodakshayi Vishnu enters as Kshirodakshayi Vishnu. I may have said Kshirodakshayi in the beginning, that was incorrect. Karanodakshayi. So, as Kshirodakshayi Vishnu, he enters into every living entity, as in the heart of every living entity. That is who we call as commonly as Paramatma. So, Paramatma is Sarva Bhuta Stham Atmanam. So, that is the one of the lines of 6.29. That's how 6.29 begins. Sarva Bhuta Stham Atmanam Sarva Bhutani Cha Atmani Ikshate Yoga Yuktatma Sarvatra Samadarshanaha. So, Sarva Bhuta Stham means, Sarva Bhuta means, Bhuta means a living entity. Sarva means all. Sarva Bhuta, in all living entities. Stham means situated or present inside all living entities. Atmanam, Atmanam here is the Supreme Lord as the Paramatma. And that will become clear very soon. Sarva Bhutani Cha Atmani. And Sarva Bhutani, all living entities, Cha and Atmani. Atmani means inside that Atma, inside the super soul, so or in the Paramatma. So all living entities are in the Paramatma. So we all are inside the Paramatma, and Paramatma is inside all of us. This is paradoxical. We will deal with this paradox in chapter 9, 9.4 specifically. So if that is the question, hold your thought till we get to 9.4. But Sarva Bhutastham Atmanam, that the Paramatma is in all the beings, and all the beings within the Paramatma. Ikshate means one who sees like this is a Yoga Yuktatma. Such a person is a properly engaged. Yukta means engaged, properly engaged yogi. Okay, Sarvatra Samadarshanaha. And therefore, by seeing Paramatma in everyone, one sees everyone equally. And this is very similar to 5.18, which is Panditah Samadarshinaha. How does that start? Um,
विद्या विनय संपन्न
Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini. Shuni Chaiva Swapakecha Panditaha Samadarshina. So one who sees the Supreme Lord in every living entity sees everyone with equal vision. So that is because of seeing Paramatma in every living entity. Okay, now comes the. So now the translation is interesting here. Srila Prabhupada's translation is a true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. So, um, technically speaking, the word me or mama means mine, but aham or um, mom or such words are not there in this verse. So, why is Srila Prabhupada translating it like this? Me, he could have said, a true yogi observes Paramatma in all beings and also sees every living being in Paramatma. Indeed, the self-realized person sees Paramatma, the same Supreme Lord, fine everywhere. He could have said that. Now, this is a verse that I use to point out that Srila Prabhupada's translations are bhavartha, not shabdartha. Shabdartha means just the literal meaning. So one can get the literal meaning but miss the point. Bhavartha conveys the point. And in some cases, to convey the bhavartha, you may have to deviate from the literal words. And Prabhupada chose the bhavartha because his intention is not to, as I say, win the Pulitzer Prize or win the, some kind of gold medal for doing the best translation of Bhagavad Gita. Many people have done that and they have made zero people into devotees. Look at what Prabhupada has done, has made millions of people into devotees. So what matters is that Bhagavad Gita is actually being applied by people. We need such a Bhagavad Gita that actually changes the hearts of people, not wins a gold medal or some kind of a prize. So, keeping that in mind, this translation is perfectly correct. And we will see in the very next verse, it is exactly that same thing. Now, let's see 6.30, which Krishna is saying, Yo mam pashyati sarvatra. Mam. So, one who sees me everywhere. Sarvam cha mai pashyati. And sees everyone in me. So, first two lines are basically the exact same as the first two lines of the previous verse. The first two lines of 30 are the same as 29, except that instead of Atmanam or Atmani, Lord Krishna is using Mam and Mai. So, what Srila Prabhupada did in 29 is absolutely correct. All he was doing is taking the meaning of 30 and portraying it in 29. And that's perfectly fine because there is no difference in Bhagavan and Paramatma. That also will be covered by Krishna in the very next verse, by the way. So, Sarvam cha mai pashyati and sees everything in me. What is the result of that? In the previous case, the result was that one sees everybody equally, but here the result is greater. Tasya aham na pranashyami. I am never lost to him. He is always able, in other words, he's always able to be connected to me. I am never, so he's always connected to Bhagavan. And such a mena pranashyati. And he is never lost to me. So I am never lost to him and he is never lost to me. That means both I take care of him and he is always or he remains connected to me. So this is a much, much higher result of being than seeing everybody equally. One is directly connected with Bhagavan, and here Bhagavan is being referred to as Mam and Mai, which is Krishna himself who is speaking the Bhagavad Gita. So, this is the Bhagavan realization verse. And now we will see in 31. 31 is a very nice verse which says that Paramatma of 29th verse and Mai of 30th verse, which is Krishna, are non-different. They are one in the same. How we know that? There is a word there, ekvatvam. So, sarvabhuta sthitam yo mam bhajati ekatvamasthitah sarvatha vartamanopi sa yogi mai vartate. So, What is being said here is that one who sarva bhuta sthitam yo mam, that one who sees me as the one who is in every being. So if you look at the 31st verse, the first line has two parts. Sarva bhuta sthitam, which is coming from the 29th verse. That sarva bhuta stham, that one, yo mam, is me, which is coming from the 30th verse. Mam. And yo means that one is this one. So you can consider the yo to be an equal to sign. Bhajati ekatvam, and he does my bhajan, or he does bhajan, not technically my bhajan. We will see who's come later, what whose bhajan, but bhajati ekatvam asthitah. He does bhajan situated in this oneness. Oneness means who realizes that Paramatma and Bhagawan are not different from each other. So we are discussing some philosophical points here, but these could be big questions for some people. That is Paramatma different from Bhagawan? Paramatma and Bhagawan Krishna are non-different; they are one and the same. And one who realizes Bhagawan just doesn't see everybody equally. He goes beyond. He does bhajan, bhajati. And sarvata vartamano api. Sarvatha, always he does, in all circumstances, vartamano api. In all circumstances, he does that, sarvatha. Sa yogi mai vartate. Such a yogi, again a yogi, mai vartate, always remains in me. He remains in me. And since every living entity is also in Krishna, he sees everybody equally. That's just at this point, it becomes a byproduct. But the best outcome is that he is able to stay in Krishna, or we can say in Krishna consciousness. He is always connected to Krishna. He is always under the shelter of Krishna. He is always considering that Krishna is in full control of my life. Whatever is happening in my life, good or bad, is being orchestrated by Krishna. Somewhere or the other, it is for my benefit. So that is the meaning of Mai Vartate, always remains in me. Then in 32nd verse, a quality, a sample, a very small sample, but a very beautiful sample of the quality of Krishna's bhakta is given. So a worshipper of Paramatma is technically called a yogi, but a worshipper of Bhagwan is called a bhakta. So that's why I have said quality of a bhakta is shown in 32. Yes, Rajvidya Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. One question. So in Dhyan Yoga, the last stage we read earlier was only Brahman realization. Is that incorrect understanding?
No. So the last stage of Dhyana Yoga is Paramatma realization, which includes Brahman realization. So he gets Brahman realization and goes on, and that depends. So it's not like a black and white compartment. This is where Jnana Yoga ends and this is where Dhyana Yoga begins. We said somewhere in last class that Dhyana Yoga is pretty much an extension of the Jnana Yoga process. So, technically speaking, there are only three major processes: Nishkama Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Dhyana Yoga is a separate process mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita because the realization is that of Paramatma, but it is the extension or sort of a extrapolation, or a Jnana Yogi continues forward into Dhyana Yoga. So, a Dhyana Yogi gets Brahman realization and Paramatma realization. What was being mentioned in 6.28 is that he gets Brahman realization, but he also goes ahead further and gets Paramatma realization. It doesn't stop there.
So all the three paths somewhere converge into bhakti. Is that what we are?
That will be said in the 7th chapter, yes. Ultimately, one will realize that Bhagavan realization is still there, and one or is still missing, and one makes progress into bhakti and attains Bhagavan realization.
All right. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
So
Yes. Was there any other question? Nishkama Karma
Yeah,
Yoga.
yeah. Ragatmika Mataji has a question. She's asking whether Nishkam Karma Yoga will lead to Brahman and Dhyan will lead to Paramatma. Is that a correct understanding? Just clarifying that.
Yeah, so the goal or the destination of Nishkama Karma Yoga is also Brahman realization only. Okay. Okay. So let us continue. So in 32, the a sample of the quality of a bhakta is being given. So Atma Aupamyena sarvatra samam pashyati yo Arjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sayogi paramo mataha. So now he's saying sayogi paramo mataha. In my opinion, such a yogi is the best. Okay, and this yogi, let us see. So now Krishna is giving some ranking to yogis, and he will give a final ranking in the last verse, 6.47. So here already he is saying sayogi paramo mataha. What kind of a yogi? That atma aupamyena sarvatra. That by comparison, aupamyena, to himself, atma, one who sees what? Everywhere? Samam pashyati. One who sees everyone as his own. And what as his own? Sukham va yadi va dukkham. As his own sukha and dukkha. Basically, it means one who sees others' happiness as his own happiness and others' distress as his own distress. So, this is the quality of a devotee. Sayogi paramo mataha. Now, it's not being said here that this is a devotee. Later on, for example, in 12th chapter, you will see 9 verses alluding to this fact that one who sees everybody with friendly eyes, with an eyes of friendship, maitri and karuna, compassion and so on, is very, very dear to me, and he is my devotee. So a small sample of who is a devotee is being shown here. More will be revealed in chapter 12. So the translation is, he is a perfect yogi by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and distress. So one who sees others' happiness, this is a very important point. In the material world, we rarely see other people's happiness as our own. When others are happy, we feel jealous or envious. When others are sad, we feel, good about it. Okay, I could not get it, even he could not get it. Nice. So something like that. It's called paradukha sukhi. That when paradukha, when other person goes under dukha, I become happy. Or parasukha dukhi, that we become um, sad or jealous on seeing other people's success. That is the material world. But a bhakta is paradukha dukhi and parasukha sukhi. When others are happy, he is happy. When others are in distress, he is in distress. So this is a very, very beautiful quality of a devotee. How we will see more expansion of this in chapter 12. Okay, so this is where the discussion of dhyana yoga ends. Now Arjuna's question comes. So now a whole change is occurring. A big, big change occurs in the Bhagavad Gita. So this is the point where Bhagavad Gita takes a big turn. So please pay very careful attention from now on. We are coming to the end of chapter 6, and chapter 7 is going to begin, and it brings a whole new and fresh look at Bhagavad Gita. So why that happens is because of this Arjuna's question. It's a very, very important question. So let us see what is Arjuna's question. So what has been the main topic so far? a very quick revision of Bhagavad Gita so far. Please pay very careful attention. A big change is occurring, a big earthquake sort of is happening. I cannot hype it up more or dramatize it enough. So I hope you understand the turn, the big turn that is coming in Bhagavad Gita. So please pay very careful attention. So what has been covered in Bhagavad Gita so far is Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga. At a very, very high level, it talks about detachment and controlling the mind. Detachment from the fruits, some kind of detachment, either detachment from the fruits, either detachment from the activity itself, and for either of them, mind control and sense control. And senses, the primary sense organ is the mind. Our sense organs are just the sort of the instruments, the physical instruments. Ultimately, the sense organ is the mind, which makes sense out of all these things. So, controlling the mind has been sort of the focus through detachment of actions or results, but that has been sort of the sum and substance, the underlying theme of the discussion so far. Okay, now let us see what Arjuna says. Arjuna is going to say this process is impractical, impossible. I cannot control my mind. Because once you start going on this path of Nishkama Karma Yoga, then Jnana Yoga, and then Dhyana Yoga, they are almost like a big sort of a spectrum. And you realize that controlling the mind is extremely, extremely hard. Okay. There was one point I think I missed mentioning, which is, let me see, or maybe it is coming later. Yeah. So if you look at, this is a slightly important point. Let me go back to verse number 28, 6.28. Yunjan evam sada atmanam. Okay. So 28th verse was showing the Brahman realization, if you remember. And what was being said was one who has controlled the mind in this way, or one who is, the technically correct understanding is one who is controlling the mind like this always, sada. Okay, so the point I'm trying to bring out is that this controlling the mind is not like you do it once, you attain the Brahman stage, Brahman realization, and then you no longer have to control the mind. Now you have been like, you work hard, and then you have been accepted into a good college, and then you don't have to work hard anymore. Anybody, everybody has gone through college, that that's not true. You work very hard to get into a good college, and the more good the college is, the more hard the curriculum is, and the more you have to continue to work. So when you get your college admission, you get into Harvard or Stanford, whatever may be the best, and you celebrate. No, that's not celebration. You have 4 years of very, very hard work ahead of you. You should feel a lot of anxiety and a lot of nervousness. Why are you celebrating, one could say. So that is the point being shown here, that one who has controlled the mind has to continue controlling it even after attaining Brahman realization. Brahman realization is not a autopilot stage. Okay, that once you have taken off the ground and reached cruising altitude, you put the aeroplane in autopilot and it flies on its own. No, it's more like a fighter jet. You attain the altitude and you have to be more alert or as alert as always. So the point that is being brought up by Arjuna, and Arjuna understands this, that it's not a autopilot stage. that, okay, I will control the mind. Once attaining this spiritual destination of Brahman realization, I'm done. Now I don't have to work anymore. That's not the case. And that, in part, is what makes Arjun say that I cannot control the mind. It's just impossible. It's impossible to even reach that stage, and to maintain that stage is also impossible. Both are impossible. So this is Arjuna's first, you will see first rejection, because there's a second rejection coming. All right. So please pay very careful attention. So Arjuna throws up his hands and he says that he cannot handle this system of yoga, which has been described so far from chapter 2 to 6, essentially, which culminates in controlling the mind. So what does he say? Yoyam yogas tvaya proktaha, that this system of yoga tvaya proktaha, which you have spoken, samyena madhusudana, which you have spoken sort of in great detail, in with all aspects you have explained, Nishkama Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and all the things you have explained. Etasya aham na pashyami, I cannot see, aham na pashyami, that sthitim sthiram, that how it can be sustainable. It's not sustainable. I can do it one day or 1 minute. It's sthitim sthiram. It's not, it's not sthir. That situation, it's like a very, very, in physics, there is called a, what is it called? Unstable equilibrium. Like you somehow balance, I don't know, I can show it or not, but like I have a, I have two pencils here. Now I can balance one pencil on top of the other, maybe after very, very hard work. After 10 minutes of trying, I can maybe balance this pencil on this other pencil, correct? But it is called unstable equilibrium. The moment the slightest disturbance happens, it will fall, correct? Whereas if I put this pencil in my hand, in my cupped hand like this is called stable equilibrium. Even if I shake it, it comes back to its original position. Even if I keep disturbing, it does not get disturbed. This is called stable. This what you can call as autopilot. That once you have attained it, you can be free. So Arjuna is saying that this situation of mind control is like unstable equilibrium. Sthitim sthiram, I don't see how it is stable, because chanchalatvat, due to the chanchal, due to the restless nature of the mind. So he is not saying that it is not possible. He's saying it is possible, but it is completely impractical, and it is basically not possible to sustain it. Okay, I hope you get the technical point that Arjuna is making. And then he gives the detailed reason why it is so hard, or why it is so unstable. Because chanchalam hi manah Krishna. This mana is very chanchal. He already said that, and then he gives more expansion of that. Pramathi. Pramathi means it is very, very, it is chanchal, but you cannot ignore it. Like, I don't know, we were traveling in an aeroplane just now from our travel. Just one row ahead of us, there was a child who was crying, small child. Now we were able to ignore it. Was annoying and frustrating and whatever, when somebody else's child cries. But we were able to ignore it for some time, because we are not the parents. Imagine what is going on with the parents. They cannot ignore. That is what is being said here. That pramathi means it is not ignorable. It's like your mind is agitated, or your mind is so restless and you cannot even ignore it. So it is non-ignorable. And it is balavad, means it is crying loudly, not softly. With strength it is crying. Very hard it is crying. And dridham. Dridham means it does not stop crying. Okay, so you cannot ignore it. It's very loud and it keeps on going. That is the nature of its restlessness. I hope you get the sense of it. Tasya aham nigraham manye vayor eva sadushkaram. So it is easier to subdue the wind. Now imagine who is speaking, Arjuna. He has big astra. Astra means weapons to control the wind, to control the rain, to control fire. You know, you have an astra which will, you know, that astra even we have, which rains fire. It's called a nuclear bomb or whatever, some kind of bomb. You explode it and fire comes out. But we don't have bombs which create wind or rain yet. Maybe in the future there will be. So, or a cyclone, not just rain, but a cyclone or a hurricane. So, um, Arjuna had all these things. He was a very powerful person and he could do mind control. In this picture on the slide, I have shown that Arjun had, you know, how he uh, married Draupadi in the Swayamwar to hit the arrow at the right moment, you know, by looking at a mirror image in the water. It requires mind control. Arjuna was not some ordinary person like you and me. He already was very advanced at mind control. And he is saying that this process of yoga is not possible for me because my mind is restless. So if his very advanced mind is very restless, then what about us? We have no chance. So Arjuna is saying that this, I can control the wind. I have the power to control the wind, but I do not have power to control the mind. Okay. So then he becomes quiet and Lord Krishna answers the question. So first Arjuna is saying this process, this whole process that you have explained from chapter 2 to 5 or to 6, first half of 6 is very hard to perform. And Lord Krishna says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Asamshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyena cha Grihyate. So Lord Krishna first agrees. Asamshayam, no doubt. You are correct, my dear Arjuna. Mano Durni Graham Chalam. That this mana is very chala, is very chala or chanchala, is not achala. Achala means steady, is very chanchala or very chalam. And it is durni griham and it cannot be controlled because it is very chala or very chanchal. But tu means but, very important. Any verse with a tu, you must pay attention. So there is a but, it means it's some kind of a clause in the philosophy. So tu, abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. That by abhyasa cha and vairagya, by practice. So Lord Krishna is reminding Arjuna, this process of mind control requires practice or training. Abhyas, a better word than practice is training. Okay, train. Practice just means that if you are, you know, it's kind of similar, but practice just means like, um, how do you practice to uh, walk? Okay, so after walking, you don't become better at walking. We have been walking for 30, 40 years. We cannot say that we were walking less in 10 years ago than now. Okay, we are walking the same. So that's practice, sort of it reaches a limit. Training means you can keep getting better and better, and you, you know, can become like world class. So like world class, you know, marathon runner needs a lot of, there's subtle difference between practice and training. Anyway, by abhyas, by training, one can perfect the process of mind control. And what it requires at a fundamental level is this detachment, vairagya, which has been the theme of the chapters from 2 to 6. Whether it is vairagya from the phala, the fruits of action, or vairagya from the action itself. But some kind of vairagya is essential. So, vairagya and abhyas, or training the mind to do the vairagya. So, vairagya is the centerpiece. It requires us to train the mind to perform the vairagya, or to accept the vairagya, to accept the detachment, to be able to perform detachment. By this, it is possible. So he's saying, you try, you please do it. And Arjuna says that it is just not possible. So the bottom line here is dhyana yoga, or this whole system, this entire spectrum of Nishkama Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga. It is a big spectrum. Arjuna is saying, I cannot do. And if Arjuna cannot do, it's a very clear indication to us that we also will find it extremely hard to do. So, what is the alternative? The alternative is a whole new line of yoga, a whole parallel path, which will start in chapter 7, which is Bhakti Yoga. So that we will start next time, but we will continue a little bit further in this chapter, or we'll complete this chapter. But Bhakti Yoga is a whole parallel path. So Arjuna is completely rejecting the process of Dhyana Yoga. So he is not satisfied with this answer. So Lord Krishna is continuing for one more verse, where he says that, I'll just read the translation to save time. For one whose mind is unbridled or uncontrolled, self-realization is difficult work, which is true. But he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion. So basically, that by it says Vashya Atmana tu Yatata, that by controlling the mind um, in a proper way, in a under maybe some guidance, or gradually in a sustained way, it is possible to be successful at this path of yoga. So this answer also, Arjuna is very smart. Please understand that he is not a small child who needs a lot of explanation, a lot of conviction, convincing motivation, and all that. So Arjuna again rejects the answer. He says that this is not possible. So, in the next slide is his second rejection. He does not like, or not like, but he cannot accept this answer from Krishna, because he thinks that he is unable to work, or he is unable to follow it. So in verse number 37, he rejects once again. So Arjuna uvacha ayatihi shraddhaya upeto yogat chalitamaanasaha aprapya yoga samsiddhim kam gatim Krishna gacchati. So a very important question he asks. So technically the question, what he is asking is ayatihi shraddhaya upeto, that even though I do it with a lot of shraddha, as you are saying, in his mind, he knows that he is going to be unsuccessful. He doesn't want to tell Krishna that your instruction I cannot follow. He is saying, even if I follow with a lot of shraddha, and somehow if I'm unsuccessful, because he internally knows that this is something he cannot follow. So he's saying, let's say I follow your instruction, but if I am unsuccessful, ayatihi means unsuccessful. From this yogat, chalati manasaha, due to the uncontrolled mind. So he's saying, let's say my mind is very uncontrolled. I still try to do what you are saying, but I still fail. Aprapya yoga samsiddhim. And I do not get the final result of yoga. Samsiddhim means the siddhi, the final attainment of siddhi by following the yoga. Aprapya. Aprapya means I cannot get it, let's say. Kam gatim Krishna. Then what happens? Do I get a fail grade, F grade? Do I get sent to hell? Do I have to start from the beginning? Do I have to take 10 million more births? What is the result of a person? So basically, the question is, what is the result of a person who follows this path of yoga and still fails? Because the mind is so hard to control. That is the essence of the question. In other words, he is just asking, okay, whatever you have explained, I cannot do it. Now tell me what is the result of failure. Okay, it's like for a school student, let's say, throughout the semester he's trying to pass. There comes a point in time in the semester when he knows that now I will get a fail grade. Even if I do very well from now onwards, there is no way I can pass the course. So he goes to the teacher and says, I am going to fail. What are the consequences? Do I have to repeat the year? Will I be thrown out of the school? Do I have to pay more fees? Whatever may be the consequence. Now, the question is simply of consequence. But the underlying theme is that this is not possible for me. I will fail. However sincerely, Shraddha, however sincerely I try, I will fail. That is the unwritten meaning here that we must realize from Arjuna's question. And the answer, therefore, will be bhakti. Bhagavad Gita does not end here in chapter 6. One can say that Bhagavad Gita starts all over again in chapter 7. Chapter 7, that's why, is a fresh beginning of Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 7, this onwards may be the portion of Bhagavad Gita that many of you have never heard. Whatever we have heard from the beginning of the series till now, many people have heard. Detachment and all these things, mind control. Beyond chapter 7 and beyond may be completely alien to many people. And that is what Lord Krishna will give as a solution. And Lord Krishna was waiting for Arjuna to go through this process and realize how hard it is, and then waiting for this desperation within Arjuna to ask for an alternate process, and then reveal bhakti to Arjuna. So that's what's going on right now. Then Arjuna's question continues. Kachinna bhaya vibhrashtaha chinna bhram iva nashyati apratishto mahabaho vimudho brahmanah pathi. So he's just continuing that. I just read the translation that, O mighty armed Krishna, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? Which means apratishto. He's left without pratishtha. He's left without pratishtha means without any foundation. Like you say, you pull the carpet below the feet of someone, or you pull the floor पैर के नीचे से जमीन whatever खींच लिया or छीन लिया. So somebody has lost their whole foundation. Where does he stand now? And then Arjuna doesn't say bye-bye. Verse 39, Arjuna demonstrates the real mood of a shishya. If you remember, in the beginning of second chapter, Arjuna takes the position of shishya. So a shishya does not reject the guru. he may say that the instruction is very hard to follow for me, or this instruction I cannot understand, but he stays connected to the Guru. And the last fallback, the final fallback, is to fall back on the Guru himself. So, a shishya, an intelligent shishya, has to know the right question to ask, even if he's saying no. So, here Arjuna is saying, okay, what is the consequence of failing? And but he is showing an extremely submissive and an attitude and an attitude of learning, that I am willing to learn, I'm willing to hear. What I'm not willing, I may be willing to give up your instructions or call them as impractical, but I'm not willing to give up your shelter. One thing that the disciple knows is that the Guru is the only shelter and never leaves the shelter of the Guru. So, Arjuna says this verse, Etan me samshayam Krishna, that this is my doubt, my dear Krishna. Chetum arhasi asheshataha. Chetum means you dispel it, you completely destroy this doubt, please. Asheshataha means without any particle of it remaining, completely you destroy it. Asheshataha. Tvad anyah samshayasya asya, that without you, tvam anyaha, or other than you, cheta nahi upapadyate, that cheta, the destroyer of these doubts, I cannot, there is no other destroyer of doubts. Basically, you are my only shelter. So, this is the Guru Nishtha of Arjuna for his or towards his Guru. And many times this will happen for those who have accepted a Guru, that the words of the Guru may sound impractical. One may think, oh, this is not for me. I think I asked this question, I got a completely different answer. Now, there is some level of arrogance in that in some cases, you know what answer you want to hear. If the Guru gives that answer, then the Guru is good or he is knowledgeable. If he doesn't give the answer you wanted, either he is a fool, or he doesn't like you, or he doesn't want to understand your mood, or he doesn't want to help you, or something like that. And then the faith in the Guru is lost. So the mood of the disciple is that the Guru is always, always, always speaking in my benefit, even if it appears a bit harsh sometimes, or even if he may have some agenda, he may have a way so that we properly understand it. That he makes us, he's not just going to give me an answer. A more emphatic way to give an answer is to make us realize. I am a parent of two children. Sometimes when the child says, no, I want to do this, I want to do this, I say, okay, do it. I know they will fail, but if I tell them that this is not correct, they will not understand. I say, okay, do it. Then I let them fail, because I mean, of course, not in a very big or very consequential area, but a small one or a medium one. Because that failure in that will teach them in a more impactful way than just me telling that don't do this. So there may be different ways. Then the child may think, oh, my father let me do it later on. Why did he let me do it? Because that was the one of the ways in which you can make them understand. Or there can be many other ways in which a guru may deal with the shishya, which the shishya may not like. But one should never give up the shelter of the guru. That is the point, and that is being demonstrated by Arjuna here. Okay. All right. Now comes a very, very, very important section of Bhagavad Gita. This is from 40 to 44. 5 verses. One of the most inspiring sections of Bhagavad Gita. So please pay very, very careful attention, because Arjuna is asking, what is the consequence of failing in the spiritual path? Okay. And Krishna will answer it in 5 verses. Now, this answer is not different for even Bhakti Yoga. Now, it is much harder to fail in Bhakti Yoga. Or in other words, Bhakti Yoga is much easier to follow than this process of Nishkama Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga. But still, one has to put effort in Bhakti also. So, there can be failure in Bhakti. This section of what happens on failure on spiritual progress applies to all spiritual paths, including Bhakti. And since all of us hopefully will be following the process of Bhakti, it's very important to understand this. And it's very inspiring because what will be said is that spiritual progress is never lost. Okay. So we will see the details of this and we will go through every word, every line of this verse, of these verses, 5 verses. Now, it doesn't mean that one should plan to fail in bhakti and therefore perform bhakti with lethargy or with half-hearted mind or with half-hearted conviction. One should plan or one should try to be completely successful in bhakti because it is so much easier than this other process of karma, jnana, and dhyana yoga. And it is very, very enjoyable. And the kind of control of mind that is needed is very pleasurable, is very joyful. So one should have all the plans to succeed in bhakti within this life. But the concepts of what happens if one is not able to successfully complete the journey applies to all spiritual paths, including bhakti. So let us see Lord Krishna's response in these 5 verses. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. So first he gives a general response in the 40th verse that a spiritual seeker is never lost. Partha naiva iha na amutra. So that iha means in this life and amutra means in the next life. So in this life or in the next life, naiva, never. Nai eva, na eva means never ever. It's a strong form of saying never. Vinashas tasya vidyate, that one meets vinash. Vinash means all your progress is lost. Okay. So never does it happen that your progress is lost. Nahi kalyanakrit kaschid durgatim tatha gachati. So, one who is kalyana kaschid, one who is engaged in this process of progress of his own kalyana through spiritual progress, kalyana krit kaschid, durgatim tata gachati. He does not, he does not go to durgati. Durgati means a lower destination. In Hindi, we have a word durgati, means he uski durgati ho gayi, means he has fallen down or he has faced some kind of setback. So it does not happen. So that's the first promise, not the promise, but it's a statement of fact. This is Lord Krishna's arrangement that progress in spiritual path is never lost. You keep your progress. It is unlike anything else. The money that you earn can be lost. The knowledge you earn can be lost. If not in this life, money can be lost even in this life. Definitely at the end of the life, it is lost. Knowledge, some people may say, lives till the end of life. Fine. I can accept that. What happens in next life? You again have to start from ABCD. You don't start with PhD in next life. So knowledge is also lost. Money is lost. Everything is lost. But spiritual progress is never lost. We will see how. Based on Krishna's words, we will see. Okay. So what happens to such a person? So I'll read the whole verse. Please pay very careful attention in your books. Number 41. So now Krishna is going to describe 2 types of people who leave the process incomplete in this life. One process, one who has been unsuccessful after a short progress, some progress in this life, and one who has been unsuccessful after a long or very significant progress in this life. But both were unsuccessful. Successful means one who attains the spiritual destination. But unsuccessful, both were unsuccessful. After short progress or after significant progress. Those two things will be, the result of those are different. So first short one is described, 41. And this stage is known as the Yoga Bhrishta stage. You will see it in the last line. Yoga Bhrishto Abhijayate. So this is the Yoga Bhrishta stage, that he performed yoga, but it got destroyed. Okay? That's why it got stopped, because of some destruction. Let's read the verse and I will explain more. Prapya punya kritam lokan ushitva shashwati samah शुचीनाम श्रीमताम गेहे yoga bhrishto abhijayate. So, for such a person whose yoga was destroyed, which means it was obstructed, that's the understanding. In this life, he was performing yoga, some reason or the other, it got obstructed. Maybe because he got distracted by Maya, he went back into sense gratification, or got allured, got distracted, something happened. Okay, so a actual event occurred in this life which distracted him, or his process of yoga got obstructed. That is what is being called as short practice. What happens? Prapya punya kritam lokan ushitva shashwati samah. That he goes to punya kritam lokan, the place where the punya people go, or people who have performed punya go. What is that place called? Swarga. That means he goes to the Swarga planet first. Because why he got deviated from his spiritual yoga, whether it is dhyana yoga, jnana yoga, or bhakti, is due to some distraction. And most likely it is some kind of material distraction or sense gratification or something else. Lord Krishna is so kind. He says, okay, you had this desire for enjoying something material. I will send you to the place of best enjoyment. I will send you to the universe's best Disneyland, which is Swarga. Go enjoy there. Because you did this yoga, I am so happy. Like your child, if he's studying very hard, but then later on towards the semester, he could not, continue his hard work. Instead of A, he got a B, let us say. What will the father say? Chalo, B is also good. Let me give you a prize. Or let me give you a gift. Right? So, Lord is very kind. So he says, first, Punya kritam lokam ushitva shashwati sama. That after many, many years, or first you enjoy in the Swarga for many years. And then what happens? Shuchinam shrimatam gehe. Geha means in the house. Yoga bhrishta abhijayate means he goes there. Abhijayate, or takes birth in what kind of a house? Shuchinam, in a very pious house. Or Shrimatam, or both. Shrimatam means full of Shri. Shri means Mother Lakshmi. Shri is Lakshmi, and Lakshmi means money. Lakshmi, right? So, in a very opulent family where you don't have to worry about, you're not in poverty, you're not, having any material difficulties. So, in a very pious and opulent family, which means the conditions are right, very comfortable conditions, you get your next birth. Okay? And obviously, a dog's life cannot be called Shuchinam Shrimatam Gehe. It is a human life. So, human life is guaranteed in a very, very comfortable environment. That is one thing. And next, what will happen? We will see. But first, let us see what happens when one falls down, or not falls down, but stops after long practice. Now, this is not stops due to some distraction. This is because the process just could not be completed. And this typically applies to Jnana, Dhyana, Nishkama Karma Yoga because those processes are so long. You cannot complete it in one life. Bhakti Yoga, you can complete it in one life. We will talk about that later when after 7th chapter begins. But so far we have only talked about Nishkama Karma, Jnana and Dhyana Yoga. Okay? They cannot be completed in one life, guaranteed. There is no evidence in the scriptures. There are evidences over multiple lives to complete it, but in one life, no evidence. Without it converting to bhakti, if that gets converted to bhakti, yes, like Dhruva. But without that, not possible in one life. So, since the process is very long, but your lifetime is short, it will come to an end and then it starts again. So there is no distraction that occurred. That is called as after long practice, means lifelong practice, but the process was so long that you could not finish it. That is the meaning of long practice, which means lifelong practice. So in 42, that kind of non-success or that kind of unsuccessful is described. Unsuccessful after long practice of yoga. That's why you will see or in the translation Prabhupada is saying if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, because this is not actually mentioned, but later on it will be mentioned that aneka janma samsiddhim, that after many lives. So it takes many lives. Okay, and this is also the commentary of all previous acharyas. So on the authority of previous acharyas and Krishna's future statements, we say that this is unsuccessful after long practice of yoga or lifelong practice of yoga. So please keep that in mind. Athva, otherwise. Athva means otherwise. Yoginameva kule bhavati dhimatam etad hi durlabhataram loke janma yadidrisham. So, athva, otherwise, yoginam eva. Otherwise, what happens? If it did not get bhrashta, it's a continuation of the previous verse. If it didn't get bhrashta or destroyed or discontinued, obstructed in the previous life, then still if it was unsuccessful, which means you just ran out of time, for such a yogi, um, Kule bhavati dhimatam, that you take birth in a kula means family of dhimatam, of very, very advanced people. Etadhi durlabhataram, such a birth is very, very durlabhataram, durlabhataram and durlabhatamam. So taram is sort of the medium sense, but it's extremely very, very durlabh or very hard to or rarely obtained, very rare. Loke janma yad idrisham. It's very, very rare to have such a janma in this world. Okay. So basically, what is being said is that you take birth in the family of transcendentalists. Now, no more opulence or pious. Pious and opulence is a lower level of spiritual situation. A much higher level of spiritual situation is to take birth in the family of yogis. Then it's a sure shot, almost sure shot guarantee that you will make very good progress, because this is not about pleasure or comfort in the next life. It is about continuing your spiritual progress in the next life. The best way to make spiritual progress in next life is to associate, is to be in the association of those who have made progress. And what better association can there be than to be a family member of such people? Okay. So one takes, Lord Krishna is saying that I make sure that you take birth in the family of yogis. You will get association from day one and you will get 24/7 association. What wonderful situation it is for spiritual progress. On the flip side, many people are devotees, and when they have children, one must apply this verse. If they are devotees, now one may think, oh, I am not a great devotee, or one says, I am the most fallen devotee. And fine, you can add whatever objective you want, but everybody knows that, except for you, that you are not fallen. So, very nice devotees are there in the society. And when they have children, one should understand that those children are special. This family of a devotee is like getting a seat in Harvard. There are not enough such seats in Harvard or Stanford, right? When Harvard, Stanford selects people, they have to select the best people because the seats are so rare. That is exactly what is being said, Durlabham Taram. So such family of devotees are very rare. And those who get a seat, who get admission in such family, who get admitted, that means those children who are born in such families are very special. So even though the parents are devotees, they need to realize that they are the seat owners of a very rare seat, and somebody has been given admission in that seat, and they should be the best teachers. They should make their home the best school for spiritual progress, because a very qualified student has come in their family, and it is their duty, it is their um, you know it's expected. Krishna expects that one nourishes such people who have come in their family. Anyway, so that was just a side point. So what Krishna is saying, that after lifelong practice, when one is still could not complete it, one takes birth in the family of very spiritually advanced people. And then what happens, whether it is the first one or second one? Krishna goes on and says more in the 43rd verse. So one is short practice, long practice. Then what? Then we will see in 43rd verse what he says. Tatra. Very important word. I hope all of you have your Bhagavad Gita in front of you and you are following every single word that we are going through. All right. Tatra. Then what happens? Tam buddhi samyogam labhate paurvadehikam. Very important word. Labhate paurvadehikam. Yatate cha tato bhuyah samsiddhau kurunandana. So tatra tam buddhi sanyogam. That there what happens? Buddhi sanyogam. Their buddhi, their intelligence or their consciousness is kindled. How can the consciousness be kindled? The parents don't light a match. Krishna lights the match, the he kindles the consciousness. How? Labhate paurvadehikam, coming from their past life. As parents, devotee parents, we do not know about child's past life. Krishna knows about the child's past life. Okay, labhate, he gains that buddhi sanyogam, that connection from past life. He revives that connection. Okay, so even though the body is different, he is still a child, he still needs to learn ABC. But Krishna revives the conscious link from the previous life. Such a direct words, how else can you interpret it? Buddhi sanyogam labhate paurvadehikam. Yatate cha tato bhuyah. Bhuyah is very important word. Again. Bhuyah means again. Acharyas also comment on this, which means that there was some past. When does again apply? If I say, Ram, please do it again, what does it mean? It means you have done it in the past. Now I'm asking you to do it again. Again means it is at least the second time, third time, fourth time, isn't it? So bhuyah means again. That means it is also showing connection to previous life. Bhuyah. Yatate chatato bhuyah. Then he does what? Yatate. He performs the endeavor or the effort of progressing in yoga again. It may be after one life, two life, three life, four life. This process is so long. it could take multiple lives. So again, he starts with renewed endeavor, with renewed enthusiasm to make samsiddho, to gain siddhi, to gain perfection. He continues his journey. Why? Because Krishna, what is Krishna doing? He is rekindling the consciousness based on the where you left off in the past life. So this labhate buddhi samyogam, labhate paurvadehikam, that connection Krishna establishes from past life and gives you a head start from there. Very, very important line. In English, the translation is, on taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Kuru. 44, that's not enough. There is more. 44th verse, Lord Krishna says, very important verse. Again, please pay attention on every word and every line. Purvabhyasena tenaiva ह्रियते हि अवशोऽपि सः जिज्ञासुरपि योगस्य शब्द ब्रह्म अतिवर्तते. So, purvabhyasena tenaiva. So, tenaiva means by his and only his. This is the reason. Tenaiva means the sole reason. It's not like by chance or because he was born in a family of yogis. So, okay, he was surrounded by all these discussions. Therefore, yes, that is a, that is the additional sort of like a booster. But the fundamental reason is not this, what we can imagine. Oh, like a child of a doctor can become a doctor, child of a lawyer can become a lawyer because every day, morning till night, he's listening from his father about law or whatever. That's the secondary reason. The primary reason is Purvabhyasena, his own previous training that he trained himself, his own practice from his past life. That is the bulk of the uh, reason why he is continuing in this life, why he makes progress in this life. Hriyate, because of that, he's hriyate, he's attracted automatically. He avasho api saha, avasho, automatically. So all this is because of Krishna's arrangement, how he has structured the whole system of how spiritual progress continues. Hriyate, he is attracted automatically to that path. And jigyasurapi yogasya, about yoga, he becomes jigyasu, he becomes supremely inquisitive. From day one, he's like, oh, what is this? What is that? And when you are curious, that's when you learn the best. So he's jigyasu about yoga, not about mathematics or computer science and artificial intelligence or lawyer or doctor. About yoga. Yogasya Shabda Brahma Ativartate, and he continues to make very fast progress towards the spiritual path like this. So this is what is happening. This is the sort of Lord Krishna has described the theory of how his past investment or his past efforts in spiritual progress are continued in the future life. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. He doesn't have to do any effort. Krishna has already given him the curiosity and all the circumstances and the knowledge which he left off with, and all that. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands away always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. So I have seen this in my own sort of experience. I do this Bhagavad Gita classes and other classes for many years. Some people attend 5 classes and they become so interested and I'm not saying it's because of me. That's the least of the reasons. In spite of me being there, they become attracted. Otherwise, I would drive them away. So after very short, because it's, and I can only say that it's because of past life. And they come and tell me, oh, Prabhuji, my life in this life so far was so materialistic. There is no way I could have transformed so much. And how did this happen? I don't know. It was, and it happens in a matter of months, in some cases, few weeks. And you will see a completely different person. The only answer is it is past life. And it doesn't sometimes need to happen. Most likely, it's due to the short progress, because if it took them so long to wait till their adulthood, in some cases from very childhood, but such a birth is very rare. Durlabham, durlabhataram. So this kind of birth is very hard to see, but you see some births, and I don't want to name anybody, but I know few people from birth, and today they are like, they are like great devotees in very young age, because right from the birth, their whole thing was just completely into spiritual path, and their progress also was so rapid, so rapid. If you look at some of such people, even in 30 years, you will think it's not possible. It takes 300 years to make this much progress. How can this person have made so much progress in 30 years? Not possible. The only answer again is past life. All that knowledge is carrying from past life. Okay, so that is the 44th verse. And therefore, what should be the answer? Whether it takes one life or two life or 2000 lives, if you really want to have success, you have to start somewhere. Don't worry, what is my counter? Where is my counter? Whether it is on one or two, how many lifetimes it will take? Those are the questions we ask. That is the sign of people who are very beginners, who are not trained yet. The moment you sit down with a book before the exam, oh, I have today, tomorrow there is chapter 4 exam. What to do? Then the first thing they do is how many pages I have to read. Oh my God, 70 pages in chapter 4. Oh my God. How will I do 70 pages in one day? Isn't it? So that is the sign of somebody who's like, very beginner. Or if you say, oh, two pages only, great, I'm very happy. Only 2 pages, I will read it and finish. This semester is easy. So don't worry whether it is 2 pages or 70 pages, you still have to start from the first word. Keep going. Don't worry how long it is. Success will be achieved once you start. Don't get, and in this case, you don't even know how many pages you have to read or like how many lives you have to take. Don't worry. Start from the first page. This is the chapter where you cannot turn the pages unless you have read the page. So you cannot flip forward and see how many pages are there in the chapter. Start reading. When the chapter will end, you will know. Are you following? So that is the message here. Okay. प्रयत्नात् यतमानस्तु योगी संशुद्ध किल्बिषः अनेक जन्म संसिद्धस्ततो याति पराम गतिम. So by such practice, prayatna, keep doing your prayatna. Don't give up this path. So that is the message. This path of yoga may take long. It may take long, it may take short. You don't know how long or short. Okay, in this case, you cannot flip forward and see how many pages are left in the to finish. So you don't know whether it will take one life, 2000 lives. Start right now. So when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, what happens? Yogi samshuddha kilbishaha. So all his sinful reactions get washed away. And then it says, Aneka Janma Samsiddhas. So after many Anek, now Anek can mean 2 or it can mean 2000. No number has been given. It depends on the individual. But it could take many lives. Aneka Janma. Right there, Krishna is saying it's a multi-life journey. Tato yati param gatim. And then potentially after many, many lives, he gets the highest destination. Then ultimately achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. So therefore, okay, so success will be guaranteed if you continue on the path. Therefore, do not give up the path. And therefore, in 46th verse, Tasmad yogi bhava Arjuna, last line. In any verse, again, if you see the word tasmat, very important. One of the word which I told you and very important is which one? Let's see who remembers. We discussed today. Important word.
Two.
But
Tu. Very nice. Another word is tasmat. A parallel word of tasmat is what? Who can tell me? We have discussed in other classes, not today. It is similar to tasmat.
Tesham.
Tesham satata yuktana. Tesham means like they.
Therefore,
therefore,
Sanskrit, that is what I am saying. Therefore means tasmat. But another Sanskrit word, see, you have to flag. These are your red flags. So another one is ataha. Okay, ataha means also therefore. So wherever there is tasmat, you should know some of these words in the verse. Ataha, tasmat, those verses are generally very, very important. So here, tasmat yogi bhava Arjuna. Therefore, you must be a yogi. Okay. Do not give up being a yogi. What kind of yogi? Now, that is being described in this verse. Okay. So now in 46th verse, if you remember in last class, we said the chapter 6 began, and in fact, chapter 5 also began describing this whole concept of yogi versus sannyasi. You remember? And in chapter 6 also, the first two verses are yogi versus this concept of yoga or sannyas versus tyag. And again, it will be dealt with in chapter 18. So, yogi, if you remember, we said, is somebody who is, what matters is the internal consciousness. Internal consciousness of not being attached to the results. And even for a Nishkama Karma Yogi, and this is the answer to, I think, one of the questions that Ragatmika Mataji was asking, what is the destination of a Nishkama Karma Yogi? The answer is that Nishkama Karma Yoga, that's the whole thing we discussed in chapter 3, 4, and 5. Lord Krishna is saying there is no difference between Nishkama Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. So why are we even asking the question that is the destination different? If the process is the same, why will the destination not be the same? We think that the process is different. And that is what Lord Krishna spent the whole chapter 4 and chapter 5 in explaining. That even though externally you are doing the activities, right? That is Nishkama Karma Yoga. Internally, the activity, the doing the activity also is just for the sake of doing the activity. One is not attached to that activity. And similarly, coming from the other side of the spectrum, a Jnana Yogi cannot live without doing some activity. He has to do some activity, but he is a Jnana Yogi. But even at least he has to blink his eyes, we said, he has to breathe. At a minimum, he has to cook, he has to eat. Then to cook, he has to go and, find some food, raw food to cook. And then the process extends. You have to go earn some money, maybe, to buy some raw materials so that you can cook, so that you can eat. Minimum. So even a Gyan yogi may need to do that. But he's not attached to that whole thing. His consciousness is towards the Supreme. So there is no difference when the Gyan yogi and the Nishkama Karma yogi are simply approaching the same result from two different sides, but they are converging on the same point. So there's no difference. Then that's the answer to that question about what is the destination of a Nishkama Karma yogi. So you must understand whether it is a Nishkam Karma yogi or Jnana yogi or Dhyana yogi, the internal consciousness matters. And that is what Lord Krishna exactly is saying in this verse. Clear up your internal consciousness. Doesn't matter who you are. And three categories are given in this verse. And what are those three categories in 46th verse? Dhyana yogi, Jnana yogi, and Karma yogi. And he is saying in all of the three cases, be the yogi part of it. Don't get stuck or don't get wrapped up in whether I'm Dhyan yogi or Gyan yogi or Nishkama Karma yogi. Be a yogi. One way or the other, clear up your internal consciousness. Don't worry about which specific path or processes you are following. There are some differences in each one or from the other. That is, this verse number 46 is hard to understand. After I have read multiple commentaries, I have heard multiple very advanced devotees, and I have distilled out this understanding to the best of my understanding from verse number 46. It's not an easy verse to understand. Okay, so verse 46, here is the essence of 46. Always, this is a new slide from one of the previous discussions. So, always be a true yogi, a genuine yogi, not a namesake. So, let us read the verse. Tapasvibhyo adhiko yogi. So, he's saying yogi, and I will explain little more. Yogi is better than a tapasvi. Tapasvi is typically like a dhyana yoga person. Okay. So, be a yogi is better than a tapasvi. Jnanibhyo api mato adhikaha. And yogi is better than a jnani also. Karmibhyascha adhiko yogi. And a yogi is better than a karmi also. What does it mean? It means that it doesn't matter the specific details of which path, be the internal yogi, which was discussed all the way. That was Arjuna's fundamental confusion at the beginning of chapter 3, at the beginning of chapter 5. And that whole confusion was there. And Lord Krishna again and again is saying it doesn't matter this or that, they are ultimately the same. So if you have understood Bhagavad Gita so far, then you should understand this point that I am making. So 46 is like a summary of the whole sort of point being made by Krishna so far, and sort of is the answer to the Arjuna's some of his fundamental confusions in the beginning of chapter 3, 4, and 5. Tapasvibho, oh my God. Tapasvibhyo adhiko yogi, jnanibhyo api mato adhikaha, karmibhyascha adhiko yogi, tasmad yogi bhava Arjuna. Therefore, be a yogi. It doesn't mean yogi is some different path from Nishkam Karma Yoga or Jnana Yoga or Karma Yoga. What is this yogi path? Yogi Yoga. Did we miss a chapter in Bhagavad Gita, Yogi Yoga? No. There is no process of yoga. It's the consciousness, the internal consciousness of any one of those. Be that. Okay? Then comes the final verse. But he says, among all the yogis, there is a yogi which is the best. And he leaves it at a cliffhanger, which is like a kind of a clickbait into the chapter 7. So he leaves it with this. Lord Krishna leaves chapter 6 with this very, very important verse. That among all the yogis, yoginam api sarvesham, yoginam api sarvesham, among all the yogis, yoginam api sarvesham, all types of yogis. Then he says that yukta tamo mataha, last line. Tama is the strongest emphasis. Okay, so yukta, yukta tara, and yukta tama, those are like the good, better, best in Sanskrit. So if he would just like to say good, then he would say yukta mataha. If he would like to say good, better, then he would say yukta taro mataha. And he would like to say best, like good, better, best, highest, best, yukta tamo mataha. So the best yogi is among all the yogis, yoginam api sarvesham, who is the best yogi or the best engaged? Who? Madgatena antaratmana. That in his heart of hearts, antaratmana, madgatena, that he always wants to come to me. That's the literal meaning, madgatena. Gatena, to go. Who? To go to me. He always wants to come to me. And to do that, to come to Krishna, what does he do? What is the process? So, Mad Gatin Antaratmana is his internal consciousness. Both are being described, the internal consciousness and externally what he does. That was the whole discussion of Arjuna, right? Externally, whether I should do action or not. And Krishna was saying ultimately what is internal is what matters. So, Lord Krishna is saying the best yogi is one who wants to come to me. And externally, what he does? Bhajate, Shraddhavan bhajate yoman. With Shraddha, he does my bhajan. Among all the yogis, this person, sa, may yukta tamo mataha, in my opinion, and Krishna's opinion is final. It's not like you will take Krishna's opinion and then someone else's opinion. His opinion is last and final. So, what is Krishna saying? That the bhakta, among now bhakti is also a yoga. One who is a bhakta is also a yogi, because ultimately internal matters. Externally, I have tilak and I have kurta and all. I am a bhakta. When I was going on traveling, even the rickshawala would say sometimes Hare Krishna, because everybody knows Hare Krishna. Sometimes we go to restaurant and people automatically ask, "Do you want without onion garlic?" Because I wear tilak and wear kanthi. So external bhakta, but if you come and live in my home, you will see I am not a bhakta. So externally, it doesn't matter. So internal bhakta also should be a yogi. What kind of yogi? Bhakta yogi. That we will discuss from chapter 7 onwards. What is bhakti yoga and how to be a bhakti yogi. Bhakti yogi is a bhakta. Like a jnana yogi is a jnani. Dhyana yoga is a dhyani or a tapasvi. Similarly, bhakti yogi is a bhakta. So what does a bhakta do internally, or not do, but what is his internal consciousness? Mad gatena antaratmana. And externally what he does? Shraddhavan bhajate yomam. This is a bhakta, and Krishna is saying this kind of yogi is yukta tamo. Yoginam api sarvesham yukta tamo. Among all the yogis, this one is the best. So if you believe Krishna's words, the answer is, so Lord Krishna is answering Arjuna's question. Okay, you must be a yogi. And then in the previous verse, Arjuna, remember? Arjuna was saying, I cannot follow this. So till now, he has been exposed, as in verse number 46, he has been exposed to tapasya yoga. You can say tapasya yoga or dhyana yoga, right? He has been exposed to Jnana Yoga and he has been exposed to Karma Yoga. Those are the three which are being mentioned in 46. But Krishna is laying emphasis on the internal consciousness. Focus on that. Tasmat yogi bhavarjuna. But he says in the next verse, I will simplify it for you. I will also give you a process, because Arjuna said, okay, fine, I need to be a yogi, but I have to follow some process, correct? All those processes are impractical. I have already concluded that. Or I have already concluded that for myself. It's not possible for me to follow, because ultimately, whether it is tapasya, jnana, or karma yoga, it needs control of mind to some level. I cannot do that. Then Krishna is giving a hint. Now I am going to tell you an alternate path, and also it is the best. Arjuna, if I was Arjuna, I would be thinking, अरे इतनी देर why you kept hiding for so long, huh? पहले ही बता दिया होता. फालतू में इतना चकल्लस क्यों, इतना पूरा, why this whole big what you call prologue. So that's what I would be thinking. Anyway, so as we said, Krishna spoke these first 6 chapters for 2 reasons, because the uh, the practices involved in karma yoga, jnana yoga, and dhyana yoga can be fully applied to bhakti as well. It is called as karma mishra bhakti, jnana mishra bhakti, and dhyana mishra bhakti, and all are required in bhakti. That's point number 1. And point number 2, since Gita is the essence of all the Vedas, it would be appropriate to include these processes in the Gita. Otherwise, Gita would not be complete. So, Gita is a wholesome essence of all the Vedas. There are 3 pillars of Sanatana Dharma. One of them is Gita, another is Vedanta Sutra, another is the Upanishads. At least the principal Upanishads, of which there are 11, depending on various opinions, 10 or 11. The Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad is the 11th one, which can be considered primary or not. Okay. Otherwise, there are the 10 principal Upanishads. Chandogya Upanishad, Mundaka Upanishad, Katha Upanishad, so many others. So, and Bhagavad Gita. Of these 3, Bhagavad Gita is the simplest to understand. The Upanishads, and as part of Bhakti Shastri, we will do one Upanishad, Ishopanishad. That's one of the 10 principal ones. You will see how complex and how head hurting it is. And Vedanta Sutra is even more. It's just like abstract. It's like in math, you have equations. Vedanta Sutra is half equations. Only half the equation is given. Ram, you have studied mathematics. Can you solve half an equation?
No.
That is Vedanta. That's why Vedanta Sutra can only be understood according to Acharya commentaries. Because Acharyas complete the equations, but they complete it in different ways. Anyway, so I don't want this to become a class on Vedanta Sutra. So I'm trying to say Gita or Bhagavad Gita is one of the 3 primary pillars of Sanatana Dharma. So Gita would be incomplete without a good treatment of these topics. And also these topics are very essential to practice bhakti. So from now on, 7th chapter, so we have completed chapter 6. Chapter 7 will begin next time, and you can consider it like a fresh beginning of Bhagavad Gita course. If you have not attended so far, it's okay. And if you want to start at this point, that is also okay, because we will be talking about bhakti, and which is a whole new path. Unlike karma, jnana, and dhyana, they were kind of connected. So we will start afresh. Lord Krishna says, okay, now we will start again, because Arjuna said, I'm failing in this semester. This semester I failed. So we will start a new semester next time, which will be chapter 7. So please come, with a clear mind, and, to start afresh. It will be a whole new beginning at a whole new level. And we will dive straight into bhakti by understanding first bhakti for whom. Bhakti is a process. But first we must understand bhakti for whom, towards whom. Like we say Desh Bhakti. Desh Bhakti means bhakti towards the country. Or Matra Bhakti, bhakti towards your mother. So bhakti towards whom? Of course, the answer is Krishna Bhakti. But we will see who is Krishna and so on. All right. So that is the beginning of chapter 7. Very, very important. And you can say, in some sense, Bhagavad Gita is going to start all over again. Take a fresh start. So, Bhakti Shastri students, those who are listening, it is test time now. One module is over, chapter 1 to 6. So, please prepare for the test. Some of you have asked, when is the test? It will be after your chapter 6 homework is due, sometime after, at least 1 week after your due date of 6th chapter homework, so that you get time to do 6th chapter homework and use this time between now and the test. So when is the due date for 5th chapter homework? Can somebody
15th.
remind me?
15th.
15th. Oh, so in 2 days from now?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So 6th chapter homework will be another 2 weeks from then. Okay. At least I'll give 2 weeks to do 6th chapter homework. So that would be by end of the year, something like that. If this is 15th December, that would be like somewhere till the end of December. And you can add one more week to that at least. So in first half of January will be the test. So you have a good 1 month to prepare for the test. So please use the time, and it's holiday time. So please prepare for the test. We will start on 7th chapter right away. We will not stop. But you can start preparing parallelly the previous chapters and all that. And we will have more discussion. I don't want this to become test discussion, but we'll have more discussion on that. But I'm just answering the most important question about the test. Okay, any questions? And regarding attendance, if you are attending on Zoom and 2 people are attending, then put both your names in the, you can rename yourself, and if 2 people are attending on the same Zoom call, that way I will know to mark attendance for both of you. Otherwise, I won't remember, if many people are attending who are from the same family. So like that. Okay. Yes, Ram Prabhu.
Namaste, Swamiji. So,
You can say Hare Krishna instead of
Hare
Namaste.
Krishna.
That will be a
Hare,
nice way. Okay.
sure. Yeah, Hare Krishna, Swamiji. So, in one of the statements that you said, about Krishna says that if you have had a good spiritual life and you stopped in between, then you'll go to Swarga, right? I'm trying to understand, is Swarga a materialistic planet or is it a spiritual place? What exactly
It's a
is Swarga?
material place.
It's yet another place like Earth.
Yes.
And which is full of happiness. That is what it is.
Happiness, you can say, yes. I mean, if you equate happiness with material pleasure, then yes. Material happiness, yes.
Okay. Thank
No
you.
diseases, no dearth of money, no hunger. The only problem there is death. So you have death, which means we have discussed this in previous classes. You
Right.
view the contents.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. No other material problems. Full enjoyment,
Got it.
but limited.
So
Means
after that, you come back to a planet which has mm,
material suffering.
material
You come back to
suffering.
Earth planet, and we will
Yeah,
cover this. Kshine Punye Martyalokam Vishanti. 9th chapter we will cover.
got it. So Swarga is, I was thinking Swarga was more like being one with God. It's not that.
Well,
It's
then
not
you have
mukti.
not been listening very carefully.
It's not mukti, right? Like moksha.
No, it is not.
Moksha. Okay.
No, it is not.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
And in some of the more, if I want to give you a more gross, this one, it's more problematic. When there is more happiness, there is more suffering. because when there is more happiness, even a little bit of suffering is very, very
Painful.
troublesome.
Mm.
One of the things is said in Swarga is that so you have to die. So, or there is death. And but the life is very long and it is very enjoyable. So everybody in Swarga wears a garland. But when it is time to, and the garland is ever fresh, it doesn't become dry. But when it is time for you to go from Swarga, then the petals of the flower start drying up, which means you get an indication that your fuel is running low and very soon your time is up. So the biggest suffering, and it is said that that suffering is more than material suffering we experience, is people keep looking at their garlands. Oh, is it drying? Is it not drying? Is it more dry than yesterday, less dry? This is what is occupying the consciousness. So imagine a world where there is no suffering. Even the slightest suffering will be catastrophic. The impact it will have is catastrophic. And I'm not just making up stuff. You read a book by one of my favorite authors is Yuval Noah Harari. Yeah. His second book, not very popular. The first one is very popular, called Sapiens. The second one is called Homo Deus. You read that and you will get a sense in that he describes again, it has nothing to do with Krishna or anything. He describes a society which has attained very high levels of technological advancements, where you have reversed aging, where you have conquered all diseases. So imagine a society where there is no disease and there is no aging. You can still die with a bullet. If somebody comes and shoots you or chops your head, you will still die, or you can die in a car crash. All right? But you cannot die of a disease or natural death out of aging. The amount he argues that the amount of pain that one will have on losing a loved one in that case will be infinitely more than we have today. Do you get a sense of what I'm saying?
Yes, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, he explains it very nicely.
So,
So
yeah.
so yeah, these are deep points, philosophical points to think about a society, and that society will have a huge divide because not everybody will this technology will not be accessible to everyone. So there will be the haves and the have-nots. Some movies depict this. Which movie is that, Ram? Long back we saw this movie where there was a civilization living in a satellite. Is Ram still there? He dropped off.
So an additional question to this is, I don't know whether you can answer this, but when you say Swarga is yet another materialistic planet, is it like in this universe? Is it in a different? Is there any mention of such things? In what universe is it?
Well, that depends on what do you how do you define universe? That's another big question. Okay, and there are different Sanskrit words, Vishwa, Brahmanda. There are various Sanskrit words. Universe is an English word. And if you go by today's physics, universe is what, 13.7 billion years old. It is some that many light years big, or that's the visible universe, or whatever. You can give different meanings to the word universe. So yes, in that sense, Swarga is very much within this universe. It is definitely within this Brahmanda. So that's the answer to the question. Okay. So we have one question on the chat which says, can't people do bhakti in Swargaloka? Yes, absolutely, but very rare. Because the whole point of one getting entry into Swargaloka is when you have enough pious credits to enjoy. Plus, there is a pravritti, there is a samskara and a desire to enjoy. So that's like saying to a student, you're going on a vacation to Disneyland. Can you do your homework or read the books for the exam? Yes, you can, but it is extremely hard or extremely unlikely. But you can. Examples: Chitraketu Maharaj. He is, in the Swarga, and still he is, performing bhakti. And then he happens to make this comment to Mother Parvati and to Lord Shiva and gets cursed and takes birth as Vritrasur. All this is described in 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. But Chitraketu Maharaj is a great bhakta. Even though he is, flying in his aeroplane and with, two beautiful apsaras on his side, but he is a true bhakta. And he goes to Mount Kailash, where Lord Shiva was narrating Srimad Bhagavatam to the sages with Mother Parvati on his lap. So that whole, you can read that whole description, but that's the proof. Okay. Is Manjari Gopika Mataji still here? Okay. Anyway, so yeah. Okay, any more questions? All right, we will see you next time. Hopefully, wait. Isn't Romapad Maharaj coming next week? Yes, I think so. It's next week. So we may not have class next week if he's coming next week. And can somebody confirm what I forget?
Yes, Prabhu, he's coming.
He's coming. Okay, yeah. So we'll have class maybe the week after. Okay, so you get one extra week for the exam or whatever. So to prepare. Okay. Thank you so much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna.
Prabhuji.